Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. Does it work? Tell me if it works, folks. New microphone here today on the Pete Thorn Sunday live stream. Do I sound like a voiceover guy? I secretly want to do voiceover. I want to leave music behind for voiceover. That's my goal. Anyway, I got this microphone to check out. And I think it's pretty badass. It's called the 2020 USB, AT2020 USB from Audio-Technica. And so far, I'm digging it. Sound good? You guys like it? Sounds great. Everybody seems to dig it. Awesome. Problem solved. And Patrick's disappointed because he can no longer hear my laptop fan. Sorry about that. No, I'm just kidding. I know it's a good thing. Hello from Germany to Alexander. And Michael says, I have a good voice for it. In a land before time. I want to do voiceover. I do. Do I sound like hyper? It's because I've had like 4 cups of coffee already today. But that's good. Because maybe I'll answer questions faster. And what's going on this week? Ray's getting right to the point. Graphtec or titanium saddles? Advice and comments. I've never tried either, to be honest. Some people say graphite saddles affect tone in a bad way, but I know they affect string life in a good way. Titanium's probably the, material du jour. As far as like it's, seems to be popular for blocks and saddles and stuff like that these days. But to be honest, I like old school saddles on my Sirs. I use the on some the bent steel saddles, and on some I've got the block saddles. It's actually a really good question for Sir to ask him if he's tried them all and what he thinks. He'd probably have a real solid opinion on, certainly on graphite. I don't know. I know they do help string life, that's for sure. Hello from Fort McMurray. Jason's in Fort McMurray. More coffee, says Art. I agree, my friend. Wow, I'm actually totally caught up on the chat right now. I'm doing so good. It must be the coffee. I need to drink more coffee before I start these things. So yeah, I'm pretty stoked on this mic. If you guys do any of this kind of stuff, it's not expensive. I think it's under $150, and it seems to sound really good. They make a regular version of this microphone for $99, I do believe. It's like the same price as a 57 almost. Just like a condenser version that you could plug in, like for home recording or whatever. But this one's got the USB output on it. Chris, you're too kind. You say, love you. You inspire me to keep learning guitar. Thanks, man. I am fired up right now about guitar, actually. I'm really enjoying playing and stuff, and just feels really good. Echoplex says, you can use your top hat in Plex Store with the new Unit 67 pedal. Wow, you already know about that pedal. Dude, all right. I'm going to talk a little bit about this pedal today because this thing sounds so good. It's unique. So I'm going to tell you more about that in a second, as well as a couple others here. But really digging it. Have I tried the Neve DI? I haven't, and I really want to try it. It's not a load box, though. You're asking, that's Aaron. He's asking about the Neve RNDI to take a line from speaker out. It's more like a line out box, similar to like what the Sir line out box would be. It'll also work as a DI, I think. So you can use it either as a DI or you can use it at speaker level to get a line, but it's not a load box. So you're still gonna need something like a Sir reactive load with it, but you could use it. Like, for example, an interesting thing might be to compare the line out when you're using the Sir reactive load, right? It's got a line out on it that you would then plug into your recorder or whatever you use for IRs. Or you could take the line out of the Neve DI instead, kind of run it in line with the Sir, and like maybe before the Sir, then pass the signal through the Neve through to the Sir. It'd be loading, and then you could take the line out in the Neve thing. And it would be interesting to compare the difference in the sound of the line out. But it's basically just a line out box and or DI, depending on how you're using it. Good morning from Hollywood, California. You're not far away, Jose. You're pretty close. Tips for first time recording original song in a studio. I would say a good tip for first time recording original song in a studio would be to make sure you do good pre-production. So in other words, make sure you've mapped out the song really well. got a good idea of at least what the bass. Leave some room there for experimentation, but I would say make sure you know what you're doing before you get in there, so you don't waste any time. If you're paying for studio time, especially. It's really good to have a good idea of what's going on. So rehearse this. That's pre-production basically, which all big bands do if they're going in to record a record. Generally speaking, they're going to do a period of what's called pre-production, while they'll practice the crap out of the songs, basically get some arrangements together and stuff like that, so they know what they're doing, and can kind of maximize their time once they get in the studio. Tips to get over hump from beginner to intermediate. That's a really good question. Get out and play is probably the main thing with other people, and try and be in bands where you feel like you're the worst guy. Because if you're the worst guy, you got nothing to do except learn. If you're fortunate to play with people like a drummer that's got really good time and just really good, get out there and play with really good musicians as much as you can. Sit in, and you kind of learn more by doing that than anything else, I would say, moving from beginner to at least to intermediate, or if not advanced. So hopefully that's helpful. Hi from Iowa, headed to practice, says Eric. Your favorite current production rotary speaker sim pedal? And the mic sounds great, good. I get great results out of either the Strymon stuff, or, they've got the Lex, I think is their rotary thing. I have a Mobius. I don't know that they sound exactly the same. People say that they're a little different, but I think the rotary and the Strymon sounds great. Also, I use an H9 for that if I'm doing it live on my pedal board, because it's in stereo and it's coming post. So unless I want a mono rotary coming in front of the amp, I'll use the H9, and I feel like it's got a great rotary kind of algorithm or whatever. Sounds really good to me. I can make it sound really good, either slow or fast. Some of the other ones that I've really liked in the past are the Ventilator. It's like a really high quality, dedicated sort of Leslie style box. And what else? I used to get good results out of the old Line 6 compact pedal. I can't remember what it was called, but that's what I used when I was playing with Chris Cornell mostly to do like Black Hole Sun and stuff. I used that pedal. It sounded good. Later on, I used an Axe FX because I used to use Axe FX Live just for the effects. What else? The Ventilator is really good. The Pigtronics one, which there's a video of on my... There's videos of the Ventilator as well as the Pigtronics. I can't remember what it's called. Roto Machine or Rotosphere or The Roto Machine, I think, was the Line 6. Is it Rotosphere? Roto? I can't remember. But anyway, Pigtronics Rotary Speaker Simulator was really nice. Moving down. Any updates on that Wilkinson Bridge for your Sir? I saw Trev Wilkinson at the Guitar Summit in Germany, and he told me that they were shipping some. So that's all I know. That's what he said. I'm not sure how that translates to getting actually out there in the world. But is this mic stereo? No, the mic's not actually stereo. It's like a mono. It's a really cool mic, so I'll just show it to you here. It's got you won't hear me as well for a second, but basically you plug it in and then it acts as the audio interface. So it just plugs in via USB, and then on the microphone you've got a headphone level here, as well as I'm not quite even sure exactly what this knob does. This is a blend, I think, between the mic level and then whatever's coming out of your computer, I think. So you plug your microphones, you plug your headphones into a headphone jack that's here on the microphone, actually, and you can listen through that to monitor what. So this acts as the audio input and output for your computer when you're using it with this USB version. And yeah, it's just a mono cardioid simple condenser microphone, but it seems to sound really terrific as far as I can tell. Because I can't tell right now because I'm not wearing headphones, so I'm not listening to it. I'm just talking into it, and I set the level to look good. But I did do a little bit of recording through it, and it sounded really great, I thought, for the dough. I mean, it's well under $200. Alexander says, fuzz buffer issue, how to even solve this if you go wireless on stage. Alexander, there's one thing that you can do. You're never going to be able to get the fuzz face thing where you roll down the volume and it acts like you want it to, cleaning up and all that. But if you just want to use something like a fuzz face and at least on the full-on rolled up tone have it sound decent, what you can do is one solution is the Mission volume pedal has a buffer built in. So it's buffered, but it's meant to be used with fuzzes and stuff. It actually has kind of an unbuffer switch on it. It's not an unbuffer switch, it's still buffered, but what it does is it raises the impedance coming out of the pedal just high enough so that your signal is still sort of technically buffered, but it raises the impedance so that it plays better with fuzzes and germanium stuff. So, and it does sound good. It doesn't sound exactly the same as not using it. Like if you were just running your guitar right into it with a cable, that's the best to use with a fuzz. But using the Mission with the buffer switch set for, the high impedance setting, it's still low enough impedance that it's going to drive pretty good through the rest of your pedals and all that stuff. It's still a buffered signal, but it's not so low that it's going to screw up the front end of the fuzz quite as bad as most of them sound when you're running a buffered output pedal into a fuzz, if that makes sense. So check out the Mission volume pedal if you you're never, like I say, you're still decoupling the guitar pickups in the circuit from the fuzz because you're still buffered, so you're not going to get the roll down thing. It's not going to have that magic cleanup thing, but it is going to not go crazy and scream and do all the stuff that a fuzz, I think remember that one of the worst was the Experience pedal, which I love. It's such a great pedal. One of the first kind of boutique pedals that I can remember. It came out in the early 90s. And it does Octavia and fuzz face and had that cool swell sound in it for anybody that's ever tried one. That was just like super psychedelia. It was really cool. But put a buffer in front of it, just destroyed the pedal. It didn't do any of the cool stuff anymore. So anyway, let's see here. Jimmy says he went to Petrucci's guitar camp and it changed his life. Enrolled in the jazz program and haven't been happier. Wow, that's great, Jimmy Landa. So you had a really good experience there. Maybe I should go. I'd like to go and sit in on something like that and learn a few things. I see these these guitars camp kind of things that everybody's doing. Steve Vai has one, and John Petrucci now and stuff. And it seems like that couldn't be a bad thing to sit around with all those amazing players and learn some stuff. But that's terrific. You had a great experience. It's I think it's great these guys are doing these things. And okay, I'm backing up in the chat a little bit here because it's skipping around. So just give me a second to find my place. Okay. JJ says he just ordered a RGM Mastermind. Looking forward to it arriving. Have I tried it? I tried the RGM, the big Mastermind foot controller pedal board thing. I've got a video of it on my... RGM makes great stuff. So, no reservations. I'm sure it's great. I haven't tried that particular model, but I'm sure it's terrific. Just put a Thornbucker in my SSH Strat. Sounds great, says Morobin. I'm glad you like it. Awesome. When is the next Tim and Pete show? Oh man, we don't have anything in the can. We gotta get some more shows going. I miss working with Tim. I've been so slammed. I've got video after video after video that I'm working on right now, and then I gotta go to GetCon in a couple weeks. So I gotta try and knock out at least like 5 or 6 videos before then. And let's see here. Yeah, I know it's not a load, but few DIs can take speaker level, says Aaron. Okay, just as long as you wasn't sure that you knew that it wasn't a load. But yeah, yeah, you're right. I mean, few DIs will take speaker level. It's nice to have something else to kind of out there that'll do that besides the Sir line out box, which is one of the only things I could think of to recommend to people, which works great, but. I wonder how the Neve sounds. I wonder as well. Jimmy says you were influential as well. Love your channel and your energy. That's the fellow going to the John Petrucci camp. Thanks, man. Leon says, how's the PT50 going? We're working on amps, new amps. There'll be something, Sir swears it'll be at the very, very, very latest NAMM. So I'm hoping before. I hope to have something I'm not supposed to talk about it at all, but who cares? Yeah, I hope that November or something like that, we'd at least have a working, there would be a working amp that I could play through and show people. So that's my hope. Nathan says Pete is a beautiful human being. I don't know what to say. Thank you. You're too kind. You guys are beautiful. You guys are the beautiful ones. I'm an ogre. I'm a beast. David says I am so ready to hear the specs of the new amp. Any chance a lower wattage setting for smaller gigs? Yes, definitely. But, the trend has been towards smaller, lighter, lower wattage, more functionality, with like less features you don't use and more that you would. So that's what we're trying to bring. Something unique, something that people go, I could totally see fitting that into my gigging and session and practice and whatever times, and something that really makes sense for guitar players. I know a 100-watt big behemoth 85-pound amp probably doesn't make sense for a lot of people these days. So we're trying to give people what they need. Like, it sounding great isn't enough, right? Otherwise, a 100-watt Marshall Plexi would be in everybody's arsenal. We know it's got to be super functional and also not so loud and not so, it's almost like the volume is not an issue anymore. People don't care. Like with people going to, you see metal guys using Axe effects and stuff. So if that's the case, well, it's like, well, those type of people don't care about stage volume anymore, I guess. They're just running them full range cabinets or whatever they're doing, unless they're running them out into power amps and stuff. So, but anyway, it's coming. Hi Pete, I love both your albums. Thank you. Recently got one of your picks to add to my collection. That's cool. I wonder, did you find it somewhere, or did I leave it on the floor? Where'd you get it? Hey Pete, do you have any experience with the Line 6 DT25? I don't know that particular Line 6 amp. I do have one of those new power cabs here though. I loaded it up with some impulse responses the other day and I tried it. And it sounds pretty cool. I got to try it more outside of this environment. I need to get it up a bit more in volume. But, the thing basically, you can think of it as a full range cabinet. And it's like, think of it as a full range option to use for your modelers or whenever you would use a cabinet like that. And then it's got IR capability. So that will vastly change the tone, loading different IRs into it. So I loaded it up with some own hammers and selections and stuff, and it sounds really great. With those, I thought, at least at low volume, but I want to try it out, where I can crank it up a bit more. Definitely useful. I like it, it changes a bit, the sound of the thing with the legs. It's got legs on the back, so you can really tilt it up almost like 45 degrees for you, and then the sound changes a lot when you tilt it towards you, obviously, but maybe even more so than you would think. So I want to mess with that a little bit more. Have I ever used... God, my contacts suck. It's hard to read the chat sometimes. Have I ever used the... Oh, somebody's in the super chat. I should go over there because Leon Barron says... Leon Barron donated 10 pounds. That's too kind. This is a crazy new super chat thing that, like I told you last week, I'm not telling you to do this by any means. But I guess if you want a question to go right to the front or whatever, you can go there and you donate or something, and then it goes right into a separate chat window here, which didn't work because I wasn't looking at it. So sorry, Leon. But anyway, thank you for that, Leon. I really appreciate it. It's just something they're doing on the live streams now for YouTube folks. Have I ever used the Solodalis wireless tower unit? Yeah, I have a demo of it. That's from Wyatt. There's a demo of the Solodalis, both the pedal and the tower, in my gear demos playlist. James Santiago loves them, says Wyatt. Yeah, they're great. They do a magic kind of thing. I have the tower, and I actually lent the pedal to a friend of mine and never got it back. So I would like to get another one, but I lent it, and then they loved it and were using it. It was like, it was one of those things where you lend something to somebody, and you're like, well, it wasn't really a gift. I was just sort of lending it to you to see what you think. But then it ended up on their pedal board, and I was like, it would be weird to ask for it back or something. I don't know. So, but they do sound great, and the tower sounds great, and I have that. I was thinking what I would do is actually hook it up. I'm doing a new studio, So it's gonna probably December it'll be going and happening. New studio space. So that's why you see me work here a lot in this space that I'm in, my home space here, because I'm sort of, I could still work in the other space I still have it, but I've kind of resigned myself to, like, I'm not that happy working in that particular zone. So what I want to do is build this new space up and get it ready and running, and super functional is the main thing. And anyway, back to the Solo Dallas thing. One of the things I want to have is that Solo Dallas box on a patch bay, so that I could just plug into it super easy, because it is a great kind of boost and compression all-in-one circuit that is really nice, and I just want to be able to patch into it at any. It's like, oh, that'd work for this track, and I can get into it really quick without having to pull it out, plug in the 12-volt power supply or whatever, and go through all that rigmarole. So main thing with the new space is I want it to be really functional. I want to be able to use, like, so I've got the Helix and AX8 and then guitar amps all on an amp switcher, and load boxes and mic'd up cabinets, and everything's just like boom, boom, boom. Like, I can do anything within 30 seconds. So that's going to be what I get going. Kind of Tim Pierce style, where he's got it all going on. Let's see here. Andy says he plays hockey and plays guitar, and the struggle is real, whether to buy guitar stuff or hockey equipment. I get it. You got multiple hobbies there competing. Jared says, howdy from humid and rainy Dallas. Wow, humidity in Dallas still at this time of year. How about that? Let's see. Normally don't like T-style guitars, says JJ Kane, but he played a Suhr Classic T from 2009, and it's got me thinking a lot. It's a lot like your Fender. First time playing a Suhr. I loved it. Yeah, man, they're good. I remember my first time, too. It was an amazing guitar, that first Suhr that I got. Terrific guitar that I bought used without ever having tried it. And I love that guitar. I shouldn't have never gotten rid of it. It's super dumb. Kino says, good morning from Alaska. Hi, Kino. And Nathan says, play more genres. I don't want to. I just want to rock. But thanks. Jared says, have you used the Moore Radar with headphones? If so, do you like it? The Moore Radar is basically, it's an IR loader, and it's super tiny, which is really nice. To me, all IR loaders sound basically the same. So it's a host. So it's like you're loading a sample into it. It's like having a sampler. It's like you could take a piano sample and load it into a sampler from Roland and from Kurzweil and one from Korg, and that piano sample is going to sound basically the same coming out of any one of those devices, right? So, so the one thing is that it truncates, of course, because most of the standalone loaders do. So in other words, it cuts off the IR at a certain point. I think it's at 20 or 22 milliseconds or something like that, which is fine. It's the same as two notes and everything else that truncates. Basically, you're not going to be able to load room IRs into it. So you're just going to, if you're loading a close mic IR into it, it's going to work fine and sound great. Yeah, it sounds really good. You're not really going to notice much appreciable difference between the Moore, the two notes, anything else that loads IRs. So, long story short, yes, it'll sound cool with headphones if you like the sound of it. It's really down to the IR. Just like, once again, it's down to the sample, Adam says, for the new studio piggy bank, he sent me $5. That's too kind, dude. I feel weird about the whole super chat thing, to be honest, but it's very nice of you to do that, so I appreciate it. Yeah, I mean, and the studio is definitely going to be some bucks. It was a real decision to, should I do this? Should I not? Should I just work at home? Do I even need a studio anymore? And then I was like, yes, I want a space. I want a cool looking space with my amps on switchers. And it's a big expense, but whatever. What's money for? It's life. Live it, I guess. Moving down. T Crane says, Took is playing some shows in Canada. That's the band that I jammed with last year on that amazing band of Todd Kearns and Brent Fitz and Shane, a bunch of dudes that I know from Canada, basically. and they play all Canadian rock, and it's super cool. They're playing some shows in Canada. Would you ever fill in again, and did you enjoy it? I had a great time. I had so much fun playing all those. I mean, every song is like an epic Canadian rock and roll hit, so how can that not be fun? But also, those guys are a great hang. Todd is the sweetest dude. He plays, he plays bass with Slash, is how most people would know him best. But he plays great guitar, and he's a monster singer. So if you guys haven't checked it out, check out Took they're on iTunes and stuff. It's all the old Canadian, they do Rush and all kinds of basically like epic Canadian rock hits, and they cover them and do like new versions of them, and they do an incredible job. Todd can basically sing anything. Like we were covering like a Headpin song, which it was Darby Mills, a female singer that had an amazing voice, high voice, real raspy. He nails that, and he's a dude. It's like, how do you sing like that? It was incredible. It just cracked me up in rehearsal with them. Like, he'd start laughing with him singing, because I was just like, how the fuck are you doing that? Sounds amazing. But anyway, yeah, I'd love to fill in with them again. Certainly if I'm ever where they are. I was at NAMM, actually, and I missed them. I was going to sit in with them at NAMM this past January, but I missed the show. I got there just after they'd finished, because I had other stuff going on at dinner, and they were playing at the Sheraton at NAMM, and I missed it. It was a bummer. Have I tried a Friedman BEOD through a Hot Rod Deluxe, says Tim Russell. No, not particularly through that amp, Tim. But I know it's going to sound great, and the reason is because, like, if you like that tone, it's going to really work well. And the reason is because it's got really great capability for shaping the top end. Using the presence control and the treble control, you can really close down the top end on it if you need to. Like if an amp is really bright, it'll work. So just know that it's a really versatile pedal in that way. Very, very like different amp friendly, in other words. So I'm sure it's going to work good. It's a great sounding pedal. I think it's maybe not everybody's cup of tea, but I think that they did a great job on it. It's just a ballsy, awesome. I heard it like a little while ago through it was, I guess, a Bassman, and like a 410 Bassman. I'd never heard it through that, and it worked great. It sounded great through that amp. So I think it's a really good pedal. What are the main sonic difference between the PT100 and BE100? That's a good question. They're similar sonically. I mean, they're both, with Dave's amps, I had the second Marsha ever made. I don't know if a lot of people know that or not, but I had the Marsha was the precursor to the BE100, and it's basically a really, really similar circuit, and I loved it. It was great. I never should have gotten rid of that amp either. I have a BE100 actually, but I should have kept that, because it was the second one. It was like right after his prototype for an amp that became, it's kind of an iconic amp, really. So why did I get rid of that? It was dumb. But anyway, so I really liked the tone. And then when we were doing the PT100, I was obviously like, yeah, I want to get some of this in my amp. Without, obviously, it's a different amp, it's a completely different amp. But one of the things, like sort of a couple things that Dave does that definitely influenced us was that he's not afraid to filter low end out of the front end of an amp, like a Marshall style design, and that helps keep the amp real tight and chunky. There's a lot of bass that happens in the preamp of an amplifier that you don't necessarily need a lot of the time for guitar, especially when you get up higher gain. It tends to flub things out. So that was one of the things, was fine-tuning on the PT, the bass, going through the preamp of, especially, channel 2 and 3 for the dirty sounds. And one of the other things was lower filtering, which is just a standard old Marshall kind of thing. But the original OD100s that John had designed have this kind of a stiffer filtering, which is real nice if you're playing with tons of gain and you want to play metal and you want it to really, like super fast. But I kind of bonded a bit more with the old school Plexi. It was lower filtering, and it's a little squishier, and it affects the tone and the feel a lot of the amplifier. So John and I experimented with that, going with it's not something that he had originally designed in that style amplifier, in the sort of the OD100, which is what the amp was based on. But we did it, and he liked it, and I liked it. So those are a couple of the things that we did. And I would say that our good friend Dave, through his design, he'd come up with a great sounding amp, and those were a couple of the things that was like, well, we should explore that. So you might find similarities in those ways, maybe with the feel, but they're not going to sound the same. I'd have to put them right beside one another. I mean, you see like Steve Stevens using both, in his rig. He's one guy that has PTs, and he has his SS 100 as well as the BE 100 in his rack. He's got 4 amps, and he uses all the channels on the PT. I know that, and he uses the so he's, he would actually be a great guy to ask about the difference in the tone. I should hit him up because he's got extensive experience using them both live at the same time and switching between them. Okay, let's see here. Pyro Pedal says, "Hey Pete, did you manage to plug in your Pyro Pedal yet?" I have not. If you could see the floor right now of pedals, it's a little bit insane. I want to show you what I got going on right now, just before I answer anything else. I did a video of this week, which is a terrific sounding. It's the Shelly Compy compressor, 4-knob compressor, kind of think in the Keeley vein, I guess, because it's got 4 knobs on it, as well as these 2 extra ones that are these little guys for fine-tuning tone and input. But this is a really great sounding compressor, really kind of terrific sounding. So I did a video of that this week. I'm also working on this Apex preamp from Horizon. This is Misha from Periphery, his company. This is a really, really great sounding pedal as well. This is will act as a preamp right into a recording interface if you want to plug it in and go direct, because it's got a cab sim in it. So it sounds good like that, but in front of a clean amp, this thing is pretty monstrously metal good. Like I can't get my amp to do what this does. It's like an alternate tone that's for metal and stuff. It's pretty ripping sounding. So I'm working on a video for this right now that'll be out. They want it to come out in like a week and a half, so doing that. But then the other magic thing is this guy, the Unit 67. This is from Drybell, the people that brought you the what the heck is it called? I'm not going to remember now, but they make a Univibe style pedal that's really awesome. They're in Croatia. So this pedal is totally unique. It's an 1176 style compressor circuit that sounds great. So just the compression's great. If the switch is down, all you're getting is that compression. It's very simple. You just got a sustain knob and a boost knob. That's all you get. And it sounds killer. And this input switch here to kind of affect the level driving into the pedal. But then flip this switch up. These 3 knobs become active. You go to low, a high, and then range. And what range is a Rangemaster style boost. So like the old Rangemaster, treble booster, is unbelievable sounding, this pedal. Like you switch that in, and the combination of the 1176 compression with that Rangemaster boost, which just makes, it's like this secret sauce EQ thing that just makes your guitar poke through the mix and feel like juicy. It's like you can put it in front of a lame sounding amp and it brings it alive. It makes it sound, it just transforms the tone. So the combo of the compression, the boost, and the Rangemaster tone is just like, you got to hear this thing. So video coming out really soon. They wanted me to get it out by this weekend, and I just haven't had time to finish it. But excuse me, I'm burping. Probably by Tuesday or Wednesday I'll have it out, and you'll hear what this thing does. It'll transform like a tone that's just kind of lying there into something super cool. Love it. Yes, it'll raise the noise floor a bit if you're running it in front of dirt because it's a compressor, but it's worth it. Trust me. Sounds cool. Totally unique pedal. Compression with Rangemaster in it. I think that's really interesting. But anyway, so many pedals and videos to get to. So, Michael, that's some inside info, I guess. You were asking for inside info on pedals in the works, at least pedal videos. Art says, I played with a lot of better players when I was young and always learned stuff every time. Yeah, definitely. You want to, that's going back to that previous question about how to get better. Just be the worst guy in the band if you can. Always get in bands. If you're the best guy in the band, you always feel like you're dragging everybody along. If you're the worst guy in the band, it's the best place to be because it kicks your ass and makes you learn. What's a great way to get more gigs, says Phil. You got to get out and just meet musicians, honestly. That's the only way. Because everything's word of mouth, in my experience. You got to, find where musicians are playing and then get out and go to jams, go see bands play, go introduce yourself after. Hey, man, you're great. I play guitar, too. Whatever, Make friends. And it was, basically, 5 or 6 years of me doing that in L.A. before I started kind of getting in on things, finding out about things, and then getting offers to do things. And, yeah. Nigel says M5. You mean like the Line 6? It's good. It's a useful little, great jack of all trades pedal. Randy says, got to run to work. Enjoy the coffee and the mic. Thank you. Let's see. Jared says, I've seen you do a lot of product demos on wahs. I just bought the JP wah, and it's amazing. I agree. The Patricia wah, it's unique. It's got this great kind of gnarly vocal thing. It's kind of lower voiced, as I remember. I haven't used it in a while, but it is really cool sounding. I've got another wah video coming up soon for a new wah that's going to be released soon. So it's coming out in a couple weeks. You just reminded me I need to work on that. Okay. Best way to improve playing is to learn country and jazz, even if you're a metalhead. I mean, it can't hurt, that's for sure. Learning some different... I mean, I sort of worked on some, bought some Albert Lee books and stuff. And it's pretty good advice in that. I would just go so far as to say that learning country and jazz, things are a little bit more based around chord changes, and so when it's not just so shred lick, like here's a cool lick position. It's a little bit more targeting notes that are within whatever the progression is. That's both in country and jazz, when you're improvising melodies and or solos or whatever, that's kind of the focus. And I don't know why it's not more like that in rock. Rock became sort of pentatonic lick positions, sweeping whatever, it's like it's not so focused on musicality, which is targeting notes of chord changes going by and things like that. That's a little bit more what jazz and country playing will probably teach you, and then you can apply that to your rock playing. So, why that became sort of exclusively the jazz way of playing or the country way of playing, and then the rock thing was more just about kind of like, repetitive licks or whatever. I don't know why, but I always gravitate towards the rock players that play a little bit more that way, that are more aware of harmonically what's going on melodically. That's why I love David Gilmour, because he's always hitting the right notes, not too much. Okay, moving down. How was the Europe trip? Will the clinic be available in a video format? Probably eventually. We'll just film it and put it out, and then that'll be kind of the end of it. Because my thing is I don't want to do the clinic for video right away, because then I feel like, why would you want to come see my clinic if you can just watch it on the internet? It's like, I've seen that already. I'll stay home and watch Netflix instead of going to that guy's clinic. So I'm putting up little bits of it. Coming up pretty soon. I've got some video from Peach Guitars in UK and stuff, and I'm going to put up so you can kind of see what's going on in the clinic, but I don't want to put the whole thing online, because then what's the point of me traveling all the way to Europe to go into a store and do it if you can just watch it on YouTube? So we've asked people to not put up the whole thing on... Guy actually filmed it in Germany, the first one I did, and he came up to me after. It was nice of him to come up and ask. I'm really glad he did, but he came up to me and said, hey, I filmed it, would you mind if I put it up on YouTube? And I was like, please don't do that. And it was really, like I say, once again, I really appreciated him asking. But yeah, I just feel like it'll kill the whole, the clinic was supposed to be kind of something I do besides this stuff too, like to go out and actually meet people face to face. Yes, I'm doing what I do on YouTube, like I'm kind of showing how I track a song and recording, so it's like watching me do YouTube live or something like that. But the whole point was to get in front of people, meet people face to face, and not be YouTube. It was just like, let's get out and actually, I want to shake your hand and say hi and talk about guitar or whatever, like one-on-one. So to just put it on YouTube would kind of kill the whole thing, I feel like. Eventually, though, when I've done enough of them all over the place, we'll probably just film it and put it out, and then I'll have to come up with a new clinic concept. Save your money and buy a custom guitar, says Nathan. Sure, I agree. Favorite Spinal Tap moment? Well, I had one the other day in Germany where my cord pulled out of the amp while I was taking a solo. I had a kind of a 15-foot short cord, and I was trying to walk to the front of the stage, and the cord kept pulling out of the amp, which was, I suppose it was probably humorous and at my expense. So I don't mind that. Probably better that it happened. That's the last one that comes to mind. Let's see. Rotosphere is Hughes and Kettner. That's right, says Chris. Yeah, the Rotosphere was one of the original rotary pedals. It's really big, but I know it sounded good. What coffee brand do I drink? Said Ray. Right now I got Kings Road from LA. It's like a small coffee shop that's on, it's like a cafe on Beverly, sort of over by Beverly Center. West Hollywood, really, I guess. Yeah, it's like a corner, it's like Kings Road and Beverly, close to the mall there, Beverly Center Mall. But anyway, they've been around for like 20-something years, and they make killer coffee, and they sell their beans. So, and I am friggin' amped on their beans right now. I can feel it. Any plans of demoing Katana 50 amps? Says Kino. No, I don't really do demos of other amps, just because but I will do a demo of the new PT amp as soon as it comes out. Looking at going with in-ear monitors in my band. What is a nice setup that will be completely satisfied for a long time and no need to upgrade? That's from Jason. Well, get something that has custom molds, first of all, and you probably want something, I got an offer from a new in-ear company the other day that does kind of cheaper in-ears. They were around $200 to $300 or something. They said, do you want to demo them? And I was like, well, maybe. I've been using the A5s from 64 ears, though, for a couple of years, and I think that they sound great for what they are. They're 5 drivers. They're not dissimilar to my old, maybe a little flatter sounding, but not dissimilar to my old UE7s, which are Ultimate ears. A lot of people rave about JH. They were good. JH Audio. It was a guy that used to be with Ultimate, I think, then split off and started his own company. It's a tough thing, and what I would suggest to you is that you spend a lot of time dialing it in rehearsal. Don't just go to a gig or whatever and hope it's going to work out. You need to get the mix right in the in-ears for the band, and then you also need to work on your guitar tone in the in-ears to be happy. I'm really picky about it, but it drives me crazy if it's not quite right. Anything you can do to add a little bit of, whether it's at the board or whether it's in your guitar rig, to add a little bit of body and stereo to the sound. And I don't mean like stereo chorus or whatever. I just mean a little bit of ambience, because that mono, if you stick a 57 on your amp and you hear it in the in-ears, it sucks. It's just like this mono pinpointed, boring, there's no room interacting, it's fizzy. And something about the wireless, like one thing that's important to note is that wired in-ear packs, like sometimes drummers use, they don't use the wireless ones. You can just, because they're sitting at the kit all the time, they're not moving, so they can just plug a wire in. It sounds better. The wireless thing with in-ears always compromises the sound a little bit. And it just, I don't know. I got a real love-hate relationship, mostly hate with in-ears. They don't make me play better, I'll tell you that. I'm more uptight and more timid with them. I've had to learn how to deal with it, but I'm not as comfortable as when I don't have them in, and I'm hearing the amp interact with the room, and you can hear the crowd, and it's like all a little bit more dispersed and sounds like rock and roll. As soon as I put those things in my ears, gives me like this anxiety or something. But I've learned how to do it. So spend some time on it is the number one thing. Do a lot of reading and figure out ways to make them. I'm no expert, but I've got my little tricks that I do and stuff. Am I familiar with Jason Lawler pickups? I know them. I don't have any guitars with Lawlers in them, but I know they're very popular. Love octave pedals, says Alvin. I do too. One of my favorite octave pedals is the Octagon. Is it called the? Oh no, I can't remember the name of it. Octron. Sorry, I got it. I was worried for a minute there. Octron from Fox Rocks. God, that pedal is. Get one of those and have some fun. It's got a low octave and a high octave in it, and it is gnarly. I used it a lot playing with Chris Cornell. We played like songs like Gasoline and by Audioslave. I'd turn that thing on because it sounded so cool playing those kind of like heavy one-string riffs in F sharp, with the low octave blended in. It was fun. Fender has the Pelt out. It is silicon fuzz. These aren't so picky with buffered signals. Yeah, probably not. If it's a silicon fuzz, it should work fine. And one thing about that is that they're sending me one. So I'm going to have one pretty soon to try out. I am. It says that somebody here is in the super chat, but I'm not seeing them. I don't know why it's telling me that. K something or other. Maybe they're typing right now. Anyway, I love octave pedals too, though. They're rad. And you know, my Boss Hyperfuzz, it's got a great octave up kind of sound. That's one of the things I love about it. Kind of Octavia with fuzz. Jared says, I have a full wet, dry, wet 5150 rig at home and want to know the best piece of recording equipment, without buying a mixer and 3 mics. Perhaps a good USB mic or one that plugs into an iPhone. So you want to record the full 5150 wet, dry rig. You know, it really depends on your setup, man, because there's easier ways of doing it, like of capturing the wet, dry, wet thing. So, like, one thing you can do is use something like this is just going to be completely out of probably what you had considered, but if you use something like the Sur Reactive Load, right, you can load down the 5150, and then what you can do is take the line out of the reactive load, run it through your effects that you would normally be going to the wet cabs, right? And then what you can do is bring all of that into your recording interface on 3 channels, and then use IRs on every channel, right? And so you load up some Celestions or whatever. You've got the stereo, you know. So the effect, does that make sense? So it's like speaker out of the amp into the Sur Reactive Load. You take the line out of the reactive load, run that into your effects that you would normally run for your wet signal. Take the stereo out of the wet, run that into your recording interface, and then, you know, put it on 3 channels, bring it into your DAW or whatever, and you can now record. You know, then you're going to need to add some IRs, but you can do that in the DAW. You've spent $399 on the reactive load then, as opposed to buying 3 microphones, mic preamps, loud volume, all that stuff you got to deal with. And trust me, it works great. So that's one thing to consider. That's a good USB mic isn't going to help you because you're not going to get the stereo, and you're not going to get, you know, there's no way to do the wet, dry, wet thing without what I just mentioned, without miking all 3 cabinets, and then, you know at least 3 quality mic pre's and 3 microphones, and it's loud and all that stuff. So when I'm setting up for tours and stuff like that, many times I'll use my stereo rig, which is 2 PT100s, my pedal board and all that, but I'll take the outputs out of the PT100 into 2 reactive loads, and then go into my recording interface and just use some speaker simulation. Now I can set up all my tour tones and stuff like that and do it using headphones with no volume if I want. I could do it right here in the middle of the night and play with my full rig, and the amp responds like it's supposed to. That's using the effects and the effects loops of the amps. That's how I do it in stereo. But you could do the same thing with a wet, dry, wet rig, no problem. So I hope that makes sense. There's different ways to do it. You know, I'm just sort of suggesting one way that would work quite well. Okay, I'm going back in the chat here. Just give me a second here to find my place. I'm going to try and go a little faster because there's a lot of questions, and it looks like a lot of good ones here. Thanks for being here, you guys. I really appreciate it. Oh man, it's going to take a minute to get to all these. It's a busy chat because there's 250 people online. Okay. George says, what a great seminar at Guitar a while back. Thanks for coming to the UK. Thanks, man. That was the last clinic I did in the UK, and it was a fun one. Thank you for coming. Opinions about 7 or 8 strings. I've seen people do it great. I've seen other people do it where I don't like it, and it's like all range in between. I guess it's just another, you know. I mean, I think if I've never done it, I wouldn't mind having one. It'd be cool to have a 7-string. And experiment with it, and maybe try and write. You know, maybe I could I was thinking it'd be fun to like write like a whole album around something like that. Like get one, have no idea how to play it, and then just start writing songs, and make it like a 7-string record from scratch, like with no idea what I'm doing. That might be fun. Do I have tabs for the new album? No, I don't. You know, maybe I'll do something with Jam Track Central or something one of these days, though, where they can tab out a song. Will you and Holly Henderson be finishing up her project when she comes out to LA in October, November? That's from David. What we're going to do, or was the EP release one we worked on together, Rust? No. I didn't. That's just her demos and stuff or songs that she puts out on her own. So the record is still in the can and hasn't been released or anything. I think what we're gonna do is make a video for this is artist that I've produced a record for. We're gonna make a video when she comes out in October, November. I've got all kinds of ideas. The concept of releasing records is a funny one these days. I was almost thinking we've got 10 songs in the can. What about like doing a video every couple months and releasing 3 songs every 2 or 3 months and just kind of putting her out there constantly like that, always with a new release every couple months of a few songs. So that was one thing we talked about, but we're going to get something out soon. This great video director is going to make a video for her in October, November, and there should be something out then. I would think probably by keep hitting the mic. Sorry, it should be something out by the first of the year, I think, and then we'll start putting it out. Come hell or high water, because it's been a project that's dragged on for a couple of years, and she deserves to get it out there. Have I played on quartz frets before? No, I don't even know what that is. Tell me about it. Maple Flame mod on Les Paul, yes or no? It's from Mr. K. Does that mean like you want to like retop your guitar or something? I would say no. If that's what you mean. Torsten says, saw you in Frankfurt at Session Music. Thank you, man. Thanks for the signed shirt. You bet. I saw your guitar case in the edge of the room. Can you tell me what case it is? Yes, it's an SKB I-Series, which are killer. They're expensive, but man, it fit a Telly and a Strat, at least in the one that I have. And I've flown all over the place with that case now. And I just throw it in cargo and don't worry about it. It's such a good case. Is the new PT amp still 3 channels? I will say yes, it is. 3 channels. Slightly different, and we've done a couple things different, but yeah, we wanted to keep it the 3-channel thing, and it really doesn't affect the cost of the amplifier, so we're like, why not, Let's just keep it so you've got the extra channel there, so you can the extra gain and master channel 2 and 3, so you can get a nice boosted lead sound still. Okay, moving down, trying to go faster. Telly good for country, definitely. Nathan says, I was answering someone's question. If they asked how to get better on guitar, I got better when I played more genres. Sorry, Nathan. I see what you mean now. Yeah, definitely. I was just kidding, too. I mean, it's great to play. The one thing I'll say is that play genres that you bond with. Like, I went to MI thinking I'd come out the other end being a great jazz player or something. That never happened. And I realized it's because I don't really have, like, I'd like listening to some of that music, but I don't really have an affinity for it like I did with rock. And if you don't love it, you're never going to, sit there and work for 5 hours a day on it or whatever. So find genres that really interest you and that you feel like, wow, I love this music, and maybe I don't know anything about flamenco guitar or something. God, that's amazing. I'd love to know how to do that you feel like really passionate about or whatever. And, with like the jazz thing, I didn't care enough to devote myself to it, so then I never did it. And that changes throughout your life too, because now maybe I'm more interested in that, Have you ever modified a guitar and ruined it? Sure. I almost feel like I have my old Jackson that I got, which I still have, which is badass, but it's like an 86, San Dimas made, like right after they started putting Jackson instead of Charvel on some of the headstocks. And so it's basically a Charvel, 80s Charvel, which is killer. But the one thing I did is I back routed it. So I put the Floyd, because everybody was doing that then. Routed underneath the Floyd, and then I wanted one of the main reasons I did it was because, and this is a real thing, but the Floyds, they used to mount quite high off the body, and I found the height of the bridge was annoying to me compared to a regular Strat style bridge. So I wanted the bridge lower into the body, so we back routed it. It was sort of a functional thing, but then how do you get the neck lower in the pocket? So the guy actually took some meat off the neck. It doesn't really screw it up. I mean, it just sits lower in the pocket, but the back route thing bothers me. There's a part of me that has thought about just getting a different body for the guitar, but the body of the guitar is great. It's a really good piece of wood. It's just like, at that point, I'm just like, just leave it alone. But that kind of buggered it up. I once scalloped a Strat a la Yngwie. It still worked. It was cool. I did it kind of deep. The scallops were a little crazy. Not trying to be offensive, says Billy Bob America. What is Canadian rock? Well, the Queen City Kids, and obviously Loverboy and Rush, but there's a whole bunch of bands you probably haven't heard of, like maybe Toronto, or I don't know if you're familiar with Kim Mitchell and Max Webster, or Streetheart. There's a bunch of names there that, these are bands that, the thing about the Canadian music scene was there was a lot of bands that got really big in Canada that never broke in the States. And in Canada, they have some governmental regulations on radio and television play when it comes to music, CanCon, Canadian content laws, that stated that like 30 or 35% or something like that of content on Canadian radio stations and on like channels like Much Music, which was the video channel, had to be Canadian. So it was like trying to promote Canadian artists. So that really actually helped to foster the growth and development of a lot of Canadian bands. Otherwise, they would have just been putting up, whatever, like, videos by The Who or whoever was out, at the time, Ozzy or something. But instead, you'd see a lot of Canadian music, for sure. At least 35% was Canadian bands. But a lot of those bands never broke in America or in Europe or anything. Some of them in Europe and not in America. The biggest example I can possibly think of is the Tragically Hip, which was a band that became popular after I left Canada, actually. So it was 90 and I left, and they became popular in the 90s. But they're a band that could play, they'd sell at arenas 2 nights in any Canadian city, a hockey arena. So imagine something the size of the Staples Center in LA or whatever. No problem selling out 2 nights in any Canadian city. But the band, they would come down and play LA, and they played at the House of Blues because only Canadian expats or whatever knew about them in the States, really. Or, if you were on a border, like maybe, you're in Buffalo, New York or something, you would hear radio from Canada, and maybe a lot of those bands did pretty well, like close to the border. It's a little bit of the Big Wreck phenomenon too. I mean, they were pretty popular in certain parts of the U.S. I would think. Certainly, like, I don't know. I mean, I'm talking out my ass a little bit here, but like, Detroit, Buffalo, I'm sure they did probably pretty well around the Toronto kind of, and the surrounding U.S. cities around there, close to the border. But Big Wreck was a pretty big band in Canada. And then in the States, they come down, like they played the Roxy recently. So in Canada, they'll play pretty, at least 5,000 seaters, if not bigger than that, in Canada to this day. So, anyways, that's Canadian rock for you. It's like there's a lot of music up there to discover if you, it's kind of fun. Like if you haven't delved into it, it's like you can discover some stuff. It's like, wow, I love this band. I never heard this music, and it really has that sound of like the either the. I loved Streetheart. I loved Harlequin. I loved some Queen City Kids, and certainly Kim Mitchell and Max Webster. Max Webster was like such interesting kind of. I mean, there's like almost Zappa-esque stuff going on there, where it's like it's super out and weird. And so Canadian too, but anyway. So do you have any experience with Warmoth necks and guitars? I built a Warmoth guitar once. I quite liked it. I'm thinking of getting a roasted flame maple neck from them before I spend more money on pedals. That's from Preben. I had a good experience with them. I think they make good stuff. You've been around for a long, long time, so I would say they're a pretty quality organization, the Warmoth folks. T. Crane says Rush, Triumph, Brian Adams, Bob Rock, Bob Clearmountain, the Guess Who, Loverboy. I don't think Clearmountain's from Canada. He's a friend of mine, and I don't. Bob's not Canadian, but yeah, everybody else you mentioned: Loverboy, BTO, Guess Who, Triumph, Brian Adams. Those are all the big ones. Those bands did break in the U.S. I mentioned most of the other ones that that were some kind of like gems that maybe you haven't heard of. Anyway. Okay, what else we got here? Any target price ranges for the new amp yet? I can't really talk about that yet because you kind of have to make it first and get it done, and then you can figure out what it costs. Once you're done, obviously we're thinking about it, and there's features that we talked about, and it's like, do we need this? Do we need that? And most of the things that I felt like if it's an extraneous thing that we've done in the past that I felt like nobody ever talks about, or not an extraneous feature, I mean like a bonus feature, something that we did that not a lot of people, that I never hear mentioned, then we've kind of eliminated it, and then added some other things where it's real like I can't see how people wouldn't want it. So kind of learning as we go, but basically trying to pass value along by not including a bunch of stuff that costs money. Every little part, every little pot, every little everything costs money and adds to the cost of the amp. So if there's anything that I feel like is extra that people don't care about, why include it, you know? Any comments on the new Billy Gibbons Strat pickups? Have not tried. Red Devil, they promised the 59 PAF sound on your Strat. You know, Duncan's got a lot of experience with that, obviously making like the little 59 and stuff like that in making Strat pickups or rails pickups that kind of are supposed to sound like something else. And Billy's thing is for a long, long time been trying to make everything sound like the Pearly Gates Les Paul. I personally don't get that. I'm like, you know, I love Billy Gibbons. I got nothing, you know, but admiration and respect, and he was one of my earliest influences. But I don't understand the concept of trying to make a whole bunch of different guitars all sound like one guitar. I like the variety in my different guitars. So I think for a gigging player that maybe doesn't want to route a hole in their Strat or something and want to put a bridge pickup in that sounds like a humbucker, it sounds like a nice option. But I'm skeptical how close you can get, you know, in a narrow window, because it's not sensing the same part of the string as a full humbucking pickup. So how close is it going to sound? I'm not really sure. I've just never really been into that kind of thing. I want my Strats to sound like a Strat. So I was just playing my old Strat this morning. It sounds so good through this Unit 67 pedal. Ferocious. I just posted a video on Instagram actually of the tone if you want to check it out. It's on Facebook too, but Facebook degrades the audio so much it sucks. But check it out on Instagram if you follow my IG and listen to the old Strat through this thing. Oh my god, sounds good. Even at like I'm playing at bedroom volume here basically. Okay. Christian says, I lost the video tutorial for a song from your first album. I think Promise is the name. I got it from your website years ago. Is it still available anywhere? Yeah, it's on my website. You can still get it from there. It's still $5. It's $5. What's $5? It's on there. Yeah, I didn't have it on the website for a while, actually. And then I realized it was gone because we changed the site. And it was like, hey, we got to put that link back up. Farrah Patricia says she has a BOD. Sounds great, but the only issue you have is that it's noisy, but I love the distortion. Yeah, it's always it's got a ton of gain. So add gain, add noise. This thing adds noise too because it's got a compressor built in, but it sounds so good. It's like worth it. You know, you just kind of, especially with single coils, but you just got to turn and find the magic spot. And Hendrix never worried about it. Noise is cool. Part of the magic. What do I think about the new Supra Keeley amp? Supra Keeley amp. Haven't heard it, actually. Have not. Okay, I'm going to try and go faster. Why do so many great musicians come from Canada? Devin Townsend, Phil X, Geddy Lee, Aldo Nova, Lee Aaron, Brett Adams. Must be something in the air. A good music community up there for sure, and also the fact that it's damn cold and you got nothing else to do but stay inside and practice in the winter for 8 months of the year. I'll attribute it to that. I spent a lot of time practicing and not outside. So I'm sure Phil and all those guys could attest to, you know. We love rock and roll in Canada too. It's like kind of going to Australia. Anybody ever been to Australia? Any Australians out there? They love rock and roll. You go to a club there and it's like kind of, at least the last time I was there, it's been probably 5 years, but it kind of restored my faith in rock and roll. You go out and see some bands. It's like, damn, they like to rock in Australia. So I always like that about Canada. You can see where AC/DC came from. Okay, we want to see the floor of pedals. Well, I can't really, because my computer's all plugged in with 400 cables here, and I can't really show you the floor of pedals, but there's a lot. Too many. I have an exotic EP compressor. I like it, but interested in the compy. Sounds nice. It does sound really good. The video kind of didn't get a hell of a lot of views. It's up on my YouTube, so if you guys want to, if you haven't seen it, go watch the video for this guy, the Shelly Compy. But you kind of can't deny that it sounds damn good. Just what I like in a compressor is listening for the transparency and also the lack of kind of bullshit in the tail of the compression. So when I play a chord and let it ring, I hate when I hear fizz or I hear that release kind of stutter a little bit. That just sounds like a lot of pedal compressors to me. It can be a cool sound. I mean, like a classic Dynacomp is not a bad thing, you know, but they're not like a hi-fi device, you know. This thing, I really like the, you know, it started with Keeley kind of, but also the Demeter compressor. There's a few that I can think of. Certainly the Sir falls into that category of being kind of a real, almost like high-end studio compression sounding in a pedal. Cali 76, of course, really great pedal. And this one is great. And so it's got a voltage doubler in it. Plug it in and run it at 9 volts, and then it doubles to 18. So it's got headroom. Doesn't create a bunch of crappy unwanted distortion. It just sounds really, really good, this pedal. This one also, 2 compressors, but this is a different thing. A great compressor. The compression circuit is basically a boost knob and a sustain knob. That's what you get. So it's kind of almost like LA2A. You've got a compression amount and then an output level. And then a range switch here that allows you to kind of drive the input harder. But then the magic is in the EQ, which is that range master thing. It just the combination of the compression and then the range master boost. Forget about it. It's pretty magic. I wouldn't say you could use it at really high gain, like if you're playing metal or something. But watch the video on my Instagram. You'll kind of hear like I'm playing dirty Strat, Hendrixy stuff. Well, Robin Trowery stuff, and it's cool. All right. Okay. Moving on. Axe Effects or Helix? What is better? That's what I say to that. No, I don't know. They're both really good. I could use either. Both have advantages and disadvantages. We've talked about this. Sorry. Just that question drives me a little bonkers. I like the question, though. Don't go away. Please, don't sign off. When will the Unis 67 be out for sale? I think it's out now. Gem Freak says, best audio yet. That's good. I'm glad this microphone's working good. We still got 254 people online. That's really great. When is a good time to buy an amp, right when it comes out, or wait for a year or so to see if it has any kinks or bugs that may surface? I guess that's an interesting point. I mean, I bought an amp once that my Mesa Caliber 50, and they discovered after about a year, well, they probably discovered after about a month, but that the power tube design was not very reliable, shall we say. The EL84s, maybe they were running too hot, and sure enough, mine red plated, and they quickly kind of discontinued that version and put 6L6s in it instead. So I guess that can happen, but I don't think it's that common. I mean, yeah, wait for a couple months and see how people, the thing with the internet these days, you're going to get a million opinions pretty quickly about, how good something sounds. People are going to go out and buy it and put up videos and stuff like that. So I guess it's easier than ever to get opinions and get a perspective on whether or not you should take the plunge. I remember when the 5150 amp came out, 5153. I was like, oh, that's interesting, new Van Halen amp. And then I heard, and I bought an original block logo 5150 like back in the day, and it was a really good amplifier. I thought I used it in clubs and stuff for a long time, kicked ass. So I bought the new one, and I was very happy with it. I used it on tour. I bought it when I was with Cornell, and I used it as my main dirty sound for, I don't know, probably 6 months or a year or something, and then we did the PT amp after that. But that original 5150 on the Blue Channel, that's the amp I used in the How to Play Eruption video, and that I did 10 years ago or whatever, and I thought it sounded great, really good. So anyway, I bought that right after it came out and took the plunge, and that worked out. Has there been any guitarists you've been listening to recently? Yeah, I mean, like the flood of kind of people that you see on Instagram and YouTube, so certainly like, Thornley blows my mind. But, I've been listening to him for a few years. But you'll see these people like, okay, it comes to mind, Yvette Youngs, I think is her name she's on Instagram. She's incredible. She's, in a band and stuff, but does her own music too. But she plays violin and piano and guitar and does all this beautiful stuff. And she's got a really entertaining Instagram, so you could check her out. Who else? Let me think. Nobody else is coming to mind right at the moment, but Laurie Basilio, she's incredible, and she's got records out and stuff. If you haven't explored her solo stuff, I think she's amazing. What's my opinion of Dwayne Allman's guitar playing? I was never like a huge Allman Brothers fan, but I mean, he's epically good, you know. I just saw a video recently of Dickie Betts' son at Norm's Rare Guitars, and he was named after Dwayne, I do believe, and that was interesting to watch. I thought it was really cool to see what he's doing and stuff. Kind of to see these, you know, people that were the kids or children of these classic artists, and they carry on and do their own music careers. I know it's got to be difficult though if you're one of those people. I've known a few of them, good friends, and played with Adam Cohen, Leonard Cohen's son. That was one of my first touring gigs, and I think it's difficult to escape the shadow of the parent, you know, if you're one of those people. But Adam actually ended up, I think, producing his dad's last record, which won a bunch of awards and stuff. So he's certainly had a great career of his own, come into his own. But I think it's hard for those. It's easier in some respects, right? Because you've got the name and maybe you know, some inroads into the industry and stuff like that. But it's also harder because you got to live up to, I guess, you know. So there's these expectations. It's got to be difficult. Chris Stills is another one. Incredible singer-songwriter, you know, spitting image of his dad, and amazing voice, and he's great, you know, but it's got to be tough, you know, and in some respects, following after that. I don't know how I got off on that when I was talking about Duane Allman, but what's your favorite wood combo to use for high gain? Well, I feel like I like a couple different things. You know, to me, for rock and solos and stuff, the mahogany thing, that's part of why my guitar is mahogany with the maple top. I mean, I feel like mahogany is like a kind of a hot rod wood. Like, it's got more mids, so it just sort of pokes it through in a really nice way in the mid-range. So this is why with the Thornbucker pickup, I really like it in Les Pauls and in mahogany guitars and stuff. In an alder body, though, or maybe an ash body or something like that, that was kind of why we did the Thornbucker Plus, because I felt like, the wood is almost not as hot sounding, if that makes sense, because there's not as much mids to me. It's a little more scooped sounding, so I wanted a pickup that drove a little harder, you know, the output, and we wind it a bit hotter, and it naturally sort of gets more mids. So that was just a little bit more was what we did with Thornbucker Plus. So long story short, for mids and kind of driving high gain stuff, I feel like it's hard to beat mahogany. You know, if you want a more versatile guitar overall, it could be argued that, you know, maybe maple neck, alder body, this classic kind of Strat combo is really great, because it's got kind of more of a little bit of everything going on, and it can work great just with the right pickup choices. So it just depends, you know. I feel like I can make any of them work. Like my guitar, mahogany neck, it's got a distinctive tone that you really hear when you play it unamplified, and then it kind of comes through, and it'll do stratty stuff and whatnot really well. But you know, I can make that work, or I can make an alder body with a maple neck work. I would say the ash thing, like an ash body Strat, especially if it's the real light stuff, doesn't really do it for me when it comes to high gain kind of stuff. It's too scooped sounding for me for that, but beautiful clean sounds. Now I have the black the guitar that, you know, I've used for some Van Halen stuff here that's back there. It's got the hard ash body. It's a different thing. It's got a real bright, it's one of the most unique sounding guitars I have. For Van Halen kind of stuff, it really has this bright, snappy, like explosive, kind of quick, very bright. It's got a maple neck with a maple board, and it works incredible for that kind of, like, you know, harmonics exploding off the fingerboard kind of Van Halen stuff. It's a really good guitar for that stuff. But it's all different, you know. I kind of, like I say, like getting back to the Billy Gibbons thing, I like taking each guitar for what it is, and I like the differences in guitars. Like, oh, this one works great for this thing, maybe not so much for, but you know to grab it for a certain tone or a certain sound. I really like that. And so, in other words, mahogany, awesome for high gain stuff. Van Halen, I'm probably gonna pick up that hard ash Strat with the maple board. It's completely different, but it does that one explosive kind of tone really, really, really good. Two different high gain sounds. Can the Shure reactive load act like an attenuator live? Long story short, sort of. Not really, but sort of. You can plug it into, so let's say you've got 2 speaker jacks on your amplifier. If you plug the reactive load into one and then plug your cabinet into the other, it'll drop the overall volume of your amp by like 3 dB. So it helps to attenuate a little bit, but it's not adjustable. that make sense? So you plug it in on the one speaker jack, plug the reactive load in, and it's going to take some of the load off of your amp and drop it down a bit. You can ask the SIR guys for exact details on how to do that and how to set the impedance on your amp if you're doing that. But anyway, it's not an attenuator really. It's you can use it like that, but it's more of a fixed load device. So that's from R. Anderson. He says he's already got a Fryette power station, but wondering if this will replace and be more usable in the home studio. I think that you're probably covered with your Fryette, to be honest. The reactive load, like as far as a load goes, I prefer it slightly, over the Fryette. I think it's a little more, but the Fryette is a really, really, really good device. And I think it's the best live attenuator out there. It's not an attenuator, it's a load reamp. But it preserves the tone the best, and it's got the tone shaping features on it that with you can kind of control the reactive load a little bit, and then it's also got the depth and presence or whatever. And with all those controls, I think he made a nice device. I've seen a few people have problems with them. I don't know. Mine's worked. Seems fine. So, yeah. How long does it take you to make your videos, and what editing software do you use? I use Final Cut Pro, and it takes me... I can do one in a day if I have to. I can edit a whole video in like probably 6 hours or something like that, or maybe less. But if I'm really... it's probably less than that. It's probably like 5 or something. I'm not great at Final Cut Pro. I just know how to use it, like how I use it, and that's it. I should probably take a Final Cut Pro course, and then I'd be quicker. Do I like other types of art? I'm not really like a fine art kind of guy, or I'm not a museum guy, I'll tell you that. Like going to look at I really like natural history museums and science museums, but other forms of art besides music, it's really mostly music for me, to be honest. That's what I love photography, but I most of my artistic bent or whatever is dialed into music and melody and stuff like that. Which one of your original recorded songs are you most proud of? The 2 last songs on both of my solo albums I'm really proud of. So Remember on the new one, and Big Mistake on the first one. I really am proud of those. If I was going to play anything for anyone and just say, well, this is, yeah, those 2 I would say. Tons of love from Thunder Bay. Man, it's been a minute since I've been there. I was up there with Melissa Etheridge in 2011 or 2012. Sorry, I'm so far behind in the chat, I know. Really far back. Keep going fast here. Try to. Okay. Can I use a gate in the effects loop, or is this a bad idea? You can, sure. No reason why you can't use a gate in a loop, or you can use it in front. You can try it both ways. I cannot get inspired to play with my looper. Should I play with a looper? That's Christopher Post. Not if it doesn't inspire you, I would say. Solar Guitar Studio. I would still go to the clinic even if I had seen the video. Yeah, but I think it would kill it for some people. So like, oh, I've seen them do it. Because it is kind of a formatted clinic. I have it mapped out like the way I do it. So if you saw a video of it, it's basically what I do live. What multi-effects processor would you recommend for an intermediate guitarist, $400 budget? I would probably look at HX Effects. How much does that cost? Is it more than that? I think it is. $400 budget. Multi-effects. Look at the old M9 from Line 6. Could be a really good alternative too. It does everything, and it's like pretty good for what it is. Pretty good jack of all trades. A bass H9 is not a bad thing. It's really tiny, and you can get the algorithms in it where you can do verb and delay and some modulation and stuff in one unit. So the H9, I don't know what they call it, core or something, the basic one. That could be a good thing. Any plans for a clinic in Alberta, says Stradivarius. Well, I did it last year. I did it in Calgary and Edmonton. So we're talking about some other ones in Canada, but not Alberta, because yeah, I was kind of covered it at all the dealers there. I'm sorry if you missed it. We got Russia in the house. Russia is here. I can't pronounce your name because it's written in an alphabet that I can't say or understand. I'm sorry, but nice to have you here. I think people would still come to a clinic regardless, says Gary. Yeah, maybe. I guess so. We'll put it out eventually, but moving down. Just wondering how you approach chord progressions. Do you follow standards or do you try random stuff? I just add random stuff and add extensions. And you feel like, yeah, I just move my fingers around really, or I listen to what's in my head and then I try and find it on the guitar if I'm writing. Mikey says he just installed a set of Thornbuckers in his Les Paul Custom. Appreciate that. And let's see, 1965 Fat Bob says stick-on beard. Like, should I get a stick-on beard? I don't know, dude. I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to not do it. Say that I did. I had a beard once. You can find videos of me on my channel with a beard. It's not that I've not done it. I grow a weird beard because I don't grow sideburns, so it looks kind of like it's real thick through here and then like no sideburn. Doesn't look cool, I don't think. Stick on sideburns maybe, or like those Elvis glasses with the burns. That'd be cool. Okay, for my new pedal board, I need to make space. This is from JJ Kane. My JHS AT is too big. I'm thinking of Sir Riot Mini as the replacement. I'd say that would work pretty good, yeah. Similar territory, yes. I think it's a good option. Check out that, and also check out the Little Brute Drive from... I'm forgetting the name of the company, but just Google Little Brute Drive 2. And I would say between the Riot or that, you got a nice range there. Paul says his Telly has Ron Ellis pickups and sounds like God. Yes, my Telly does sound really good and does have Ron Ellis pickups. What Vox AC30 type amps would you recommend aside from the hand-wired version from Korg? Top Hats or Morgan, I guess. They both have nice options for AC30 style. Yeah, look at the Morgan stuff and look at the Top Hats. Old Top Hats are a great amp. Is a King Royale or Club Royale. You could probably find them used. You want to get the deep version if you get the combo, the 112 combo Club Royale. He started making them deeper after a few years, and they have a fuller tone due to the cabinet size. Great amp. Really great amp. Yeah, okay, so we're at about an hour and 22 minutes. I'm going to go to an hour 30. We got still got 250 people online. It's been a great one. Thank you for being here, you guys. So I'll go about another 10 minutes here. And just trying to answer a bunch of questions. Do I think Slash is overrated? I don't think so. I think Slash is actually one guitar player that got better over time. I mean, he was great in the beginning. He kind of, but there was a slop factor. That's cool. His rock and roll thing, yeah. They needed to happen. Like Guns N' Roses was a great thing in 1987 to come out because it was so sort of pedestrian and they were dangerous. They were more like, that Aerosmith. There was a sloppy thing and a kind of a, it was very rock and roll. So Guns N' Roses was a great thing. I have mixed feelings because I feel like I guess it was that good of a record that they kind of rode that. I mean, yes, they put out the Use Your Illusion and all that stuff, but I feel like it was that first album that if you hear the radio, that's the main. I mean, yeah, you hear November Rain or whatever, but it's that one record that has endured all the way through to make that band still a stadium band. Really, when we think about it, it was that record that catapulted them to. Do I ever need to hear Paradise City ever again? No. Do I ever need to hear Welcome to the Jungle again? Never. But I wish there was more. Like I did put out a new record. I don't know what it is with bands these days. Why they can't get it together to go in and make 10 songs that kick ass as much as those. But that's what all the fans would like, I guess, right? But he's got a record out with the Todd Kearns and Brent Fitz and those guys now. He just put out a new record and he tours, and I hope he's happy, having a great time and making music. And I think his guitar playing got better, and I think he's a really pretty damn good guitar player now. He improved over time pretty substantially, I would say. Not that he was, I loved his early thing too, but now he's a really capable soloist and stuff, I think now. I've met him. I actually played. I went to his house once, and I did a gig with him and Beth Hart, and I played acoustic guitar. And I remember going to his house, and he had a place in Bel Air then, and I drove over there and went in, and here he comes. He came out with his leather pants on, the whole, he's Slash 24/7, you know. And we sat on the couch, and I played with him, and I remember him saying, "Oh, your strumming sounds perfect." An acoustic guitar, you know. So I played a show. It was a Music Cares benefit with him and Beth and Matt Sorum on drums and Paul Ill on bass. And then I think I played electric on one song. We did Whole Lot of Love, and you know, I just played rhythm guitar or whatever and let him do his thing. But the thing that sucked about that gig, okay, I remember. Here's a Spinal Tap moment. The battery died in my acoustic guitar right as we were going on stage, and he was standing there waiting to go on, and it was like, okay, we gotta go, and I was like, my guitar is not working, you know. And then I was like, I just thought the only thing it can be is the battery. And I had to check, run, and grab a 9-volt and smacked it in the guitar, and now the guitar worked. And he was very calm the whole. He was just standing there like nothing was, but it was my fault. So that was dumb. But anyway, the gig was fun. We went out and played, and you know, Beth Hart's amazing, so it was cool. And he was very nice. I liked him. I thought he was a cool guy. Do you recommend learning how to play a bunch of songs for practice, says Christopher? I totally do, yeah. That can't hurt. Learning tons of songs is a great thing. Okay, this chat just jumped to the end, and it'll take me 3 minutes to figure out where I was. So I'm going to skip down closer to the end here, and I'm really sorry if I missed your question. Let's see here. I'm just going to start with Kevin Becker said, "Hey Pete, snowing in Alberta." Snowing already? God, that sucks, dude. Sorry to hear that. Question: what do you like for flight cases? So the one that I just mentioned, if you're talking about amps, you kind of need something custom, or maybe not. They make all kinds of generic ones now. But if you're talking about guitar in particular, the I Series from SKB, I think they're terrific. That's what I've been flying around with, and it's rock solid and works. It's going to work as good as any custom flight case for sure. Easier to get, and it'll take a Strat or a Tele. You know, you get Les Paul ones and stuff too, but they're really good cases. Franco says he's a singer, guitarist, composer, producer from Latin America, Argentina. Love Argentina. Miss that place. Buenos Aires, beautiful city. My question is there job opportunities for guys like me in the competitive music market in the U.S.? Well, you run into, you know, all the same things I did, which is it's a whole nightmare of immigration and work visas and trying to figure out that whole. And if you're dedicated enough, there's always a way. But it takes a while to figure out how to do it. It depends on the career you've had in Argentina too, like your background and what you've done, and whether or not you have any connections in the States. Maybe there's somebody here, a producer or an artist or something that is located here that would sponsor you, hire you to come here and do some work. And then you've got an inroad, and it goes from there, and you learn how to navigate it. But certainly there's fantastic, I mean, there's a whole, you know, Latin music community here. I used to play with Draco Rosa from Puerto Rico, and spent a lot of time playing in Latin America, and then you know certainly like Miami area is like hotbed of, you know, and LA. I mean, there's like, you know, it's a, you know, some of the, I think the biggest radio stations in LA are all Spanish stations. So there's a healthy, you know, thriving Latin music community in the U.S. that I really don't have any connection to anymore, and don't know anything about. But I've got a lot of friends that do it, and it can be a great thing. I would say the number one thing to do is take a trip here as a tourist and see if you like it. You know, if you've got some friends here that can show you around and get a feel for it, you know, and see if you got some opportunities that could pan out. Will I ever tour the West Coast? I would love to. Vancouver's waiting for you, says Ken. I'm waiting for Vancouver. I miss that place. Love Vancouver. I want to take a trip up there. Is it a waste to spend too much money on an old guitar, pickups, tuners, bridge, or would you just use the money to buy a new guitar? Well, if the old guitar is a vintage Strat or Tele or something. I see what you're saying, like upgrade an old guitar. If you love the old guitar, but there's just a few things about it that, you know, you'd like to change, it can be a good alternative. Depends if you don't really dig the guitar that much, I wouldn't spend that much time on it. You know, if like you don't like the way it feels, or it's too heavy or something, you know, forget it. Just get a new guitar. Any advice for making an original EVH 5150 head effects loop quieter every time I turn on the effects loop? It introduces a good amount of noise. It could be something that you want to ask a tech about, somebody like Friedman, if there's a way to mod it and reduce the noise. They would have good perspective on that. Sometimes loops can definitely be problem areas, and there might be a way to fix it up. Let's see. Do I have vintage size frets in my EVH Wolfgang? Yeah, it's an old one, original one from like 10 years ago. So yeah, it's got the tiny frets in it. I don't really mind them in that guitar. I generally like big frets, but in that guitar, once again, I sort of take each guitar for what it is, and I like that. You know, I don't want to make them all feel or sound or play the same. Any experience with the Boss ES8? Just a little bit. I don't have one, but I think they're really cool. It's a great option for a switcher. Regarding the Thornbucker and Alder bodies, it's why my favorite humbucker for Strats is the JB. Yeah, like a JB is a, you know, I was talking earlier about the wood tone and the mids of an Alder guitar with a maple neck can be, you know, compared to like a mahogany guitar. It's like, yeah, that's a part of why a classic pickup for an Alder with a maple bolt-on neck, Alder body maple bolt-on neck, was a JB, because it's got tons of mids and it really helps that guitar kind of cut through in the mid-range and have some sustain and all that stuff. Unfortunately, it sort of paints you into a corner as far as those mids go. That's the only thing. You know, trying to get good clean sounds with the JB could be a bit tough, I think. What's my take on the sound and feel of the Carvin Legacy 3? I haven't played a Legacy 3. I have some cool news, though, just before I go. I'll tell you in a minute. I'll answer some questions, and I'll tell you my cool news. Sean Tubbs has an interesting S-style guitar with Filtertron. Yeah, I like Filtertrons. Since video isn't synced with voice anymore, try and reload the page, if that's the case. Black Corvo says high gain pedals work best in effects loop return because they already have tone shaping built into the amps. Preamp messes things up. That's not really true. You can run a high gain pedal, something like this. You know, it's a good example, the Apex preamp. You could take this and plug it right into the return of an amp, and it's going to work great. But it sounds great into the front of an amp as long as the clean channel is good. Sure, you can, you know, I would agree with you on some counts. If an amp's preamp is especially finicky with pedals, takes pedals well and all that, if it's got a bright cap that doesn't work with a certain drive pedal or something, certain amps' front ends can be difficult. But if you got an amp with a nice clean channel that's relatively neutral and kind of tunable via a bright switch and the tone controls, and, you know, this pedal sounds ferocious in the front end of my PT100, and this is, you know, it's called the Apex preamp for a reason. It's actually a full-on preamp. So there's no hard and fast rules. It depends on the amp that you're using. And generally speaking, I don't want to run a solid, you know, what you're doing by doing that, running a high gain pedal into a return of an amp, is you're eliminating the tube preamp of your amp. Now you've got a solid state preamp in a 9-volt pedal, right, running into the power stage of an amplifier. Can sound good, but we're talking about a 250-volt tube preamp as opposed to a little 9-volt solid state device for tone shaping. Which one's going to sound better? And it you know, it's all, beauty is in the eye of the beholder, but I wouldn't say that high gain pedals with tone controls and stuff, as a hard and fast rule, don't work into clean channel. That's not true. You know, I don't think that that's right. Okay, let's see here. You guys still got the sync issues with the video? I don't know. I'm seeing people talk about it now. I'm not sure. I don't know. Whatever. I mean, you know, is what it is. Okay. Brian Lander says, have I ever been drinking with Reinhold Bogner? Sure. Or George Metropolis. Did I die? I didn't die. Reinhold grabbed my beer once from the we were in the Hilton bar at NAMM, and he just grabbed it out of my hand and took a swing and then handed it back to me. He goes, "It's okay, I'm clean, I'm clean." I'll always remember that. Reinhold's great. He's a cool guy. Can you please tell which rev you like better, the generator or dyno? I'm sorry, I don't know the rev amps really well, and I do have to go. It's 1:35. I did try that sound and vision out of sync. Well, sorry, it might be a good time to just end it then, but I don't know what to do. saying, a lot of people are saying that now, so maybe it's just screwed up the sound and whatever. New Slash record is incredible, says Ron. That's awesome. Sync is out. Yep. Well, guys, I don't know what to do. I'm just going to check out then. And since the sync's out, it's time for me to go anyway. But I do have one more thing to tell you. I'm going to jam this week at Steve Vai is doing a celebrity kind of jam-a-thon thing where, let's see. Oh, I just got an email from Steve Vai. Isn't that amazing? I just got an email from Steve Vai. He was emailing me yesterday. It's called Jam-a-thon, this thing he's doing this weekend. It's a charity event, and it's basically he's trying to set, I think, a Guinness Book of World Records for the longest jam. It's going to go on for days of nonstop music. So I'm going to do it on Friday night, and I'm going to jam with Steve and Doug Pinnick and Brooks Wackerman on drums, and I'm over the moon about it. Are you kidding? That's going to be so much fun. If you would have told me when I was 14 that Steve Vai was going to send me an email and ask me to go to a jam next Friday and play with those guys, I don't even know what to say. I'm speechless, but I'm super stoked about it, and so it's going to be fun. That's going to happen Friday night. I'm not sure if it's streamed on the internet. I hope it is, but it's going to be super fun. But Steve just sent me an email about my record because I sent him a download to it. I hope when I open it, he doesn't say, your record's terrible. You should quit. I don't, but we'll save that for next week. Suspense. Anyway, that's my news for this week. I'm going to jam with Steve Vai next Friday, and watch for a video of this guy this week coming up because this thing is killer. And go check out the video on Instagram if you haven't seen it because it sounds so damn good. Yeah. All right. Rock on, you guys. Take care. See you next Sunday. Sorry if I missed your question once again. I really apologize. And Kiro says, just want to say thank you from your Eskimo friends here in Alaska. Nice and cold up there in Alaska. Thank you very much, man. I appreciate that. Thanks for watching. And you guys, please have a great week and be safe out there. Rock and roll. Over and out.